So it was inspired by Barklord's recent video on conspiracies to weigh in my 2 cents. Yeah, I do want to say that on the subject of 9/11, I am inclined to think that the planes hitting the building is a perfectly sufficient explanation to explain the collapse of the buildings. I am amazed at how many demolitions experts that this whole conspiracy seems to respond to. Everyone thinks that they know how a plane is supposed to collapse, how a building is supposed to collapse when it's hit by a plane. I mean, they say it looks just like a controlled demolition, but chances are, if you've ever seen a building collapse, that it was that it's going to have been a controlled demolition. So I don't think people have much to compare it to. But for me, the biggest tip-off that that wasn't planned by the government is the fact that they immediately tried to blame Iraq. I mean, that was the conspiracy. They were trying to put this all on Saddam, and they couldn't, at least not right away. It's because it was so obvious that it was Al Qaeda behind the whole thing. So I mean, the fact that they tried to do some underhanded things and failed, that to me is the biggest indicator that it was not some massive pre-planned event. Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit more sympathetic to the arguments about prior knowledge. The idea that maybe they might have known what was coming and allowed it to happen. And I think there's different degrees of that theory too. The way I would kind of frame it in terms of what my understanding of it is, I would say it's sort of a matter of deliberate ignorance. I think maybe they didn't know exactly, when Al Qaeda was going to strike or where, and I think they probably didn't want to know. It wasn't in their interest to know that. And so they chose to sort of shove it aside while they focus on giving the rich people in this country a huge tax break. So yeah, I mean, I guess I have this thing like conspiracy theories. On the one hand, I kind of a lot of conspiracy theory talk gets me kind of I shy away from it because there's a lot of there's a certain conspiratorial worldview that I view that there's a certain psychology to the people who believe in that kind of stuff, and I can't relate to that. It's just not my psychology. But it's also, I can't say that I'm not a conspiracy theorist, because there are some conspiracies that I think are almost undeniably true, and I think the real conspiracies in the world are basically out in the open, and they're only conspiracies because no one talks about them. Yeah, and in a sense, I'd say there's basically just one conspiracy that manifests in multiple manifestations throughout the world, and that is, the wealthy or the haves in this world, but buying out governments, to pass the policies that fortify their position of power. And then buying propaganda on the mainstream media to sort of to justify that position, and more than just sort of buying propaganda for a single position. They do what Noam Chomsky talks about in Manufacturing Consent, which is they actually define the parameters of what's acceptable discourse. So actually, it's really important to look out for what the left-wing pundit is advocating on TV, because that's sort of defined as the position where you can go that far but no further. If you're to the left of that, then you're an extremist and are to be ignored. So that really is the kind of underhanded conspiracy theory by which propaganda is spread. And in economics, there's this concept called regulatory capture, which is that the people who are supposed to be regulating a certain group, like Wall Street, for example, end up getting bought out by the very people they're trying to regulate. So it's kind of like the police department getting bought out by the mafia. They get paid their hush money, and then they go away, and that's a big problem with the government. I think after the whole BP disaster, we were talking about how the regulatory organization that was supposed to oversee them was actually engaging in these huge orgies with with the oil companies. I mean, they were literally in bed with them, you know. Um, so and that's the kind of conspiracy that happens all the time. Is that the wealthy buy out those who have the power to stop them, and end up using that power instead to fortify their power. So um, yeah, and then another kind of conspiracy theory that's kind of related to that happens more on the international stage is through sort of neo-imperialism through the Bretton Woods institutions like the IMF and the World Bank and now the WTO, um, which is brilliantly documented in John Perkins' book Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Um, and basically the idea is, first of all, the IMF or World Bank arranges a loan to a country. There's basic and the economic hitman, like what John Perkins used to do in his career would be, go to them and say, hey, listen, I can make you a very wealthy man, or I can destroy you. Which you want to do? And so they'll arrange a loan. The loan actually won't go to the won't go to the industries in the company. It will actually go to an American company that moves into the country to set up shop there, and then the country's on the hook for it, and they have to pay it back, and then they end up in debt slavery, and that's how so much of the third world stays poor. There's actually a great documentary about this. If you want to go see it, it's called The End of Poverty. Just full disclosure, my uncle was actually part of the company that helped fund that project. So they're part of the organization behind that. So um, so I mean, I guess I would say that in terms of conspiracy theories, I tend to believe more in the sort of Noam Chomsky kind of conspiracy theories rather than the Alex Jones conspiracy theories. Yeah, it's not about it's not about sort of elaborate planning to pull off this illusion of but like the World Trade Center collapsing, but rather just a sort of bullying of the public by these wealthy elites, and trying to sell us the into sort of acceptance of into their power, acceptance of their power, and that's basically the real conspiracy in this world. And so I think that um, that's why I have this issue with this word that's really common among conspiracy theorists, which is the New World Order. They always speak that in very hushed, ominous tones. The New World Order is coming for us, and usually what they mean by that is this attempt to set up this one world government. And I think that contains a rather dangerous assumption. They assume that government is really the end in itself, when government is just a tool. It's all about who's running it, and the fact is corporations have already bought their influence in government, and there are multinational corporations that are already more powerful than any government. So the idea that they would need any kind of one world government is dubious, in my opinion. And in fact, I think it actually serves them to have multiple governments, because if you had one world government, you would either have to vigorously oppress people who would be more resistant to it, like people in the West, or like in America or Europe or something, or you'd have to bring up the standard of living of people at the bottom, because put people under one government, they demand equal treatment. But if you can have a system where you can fund certain tyrannies, abroad, and then make people complacent at home, then you have the best of both worlds. So, and so, yeah, I'm really bugged by the term New World Order, because the problem is the existing world order. A New World Order is what we need. We need to create a New World Order that serves us. And so I guess I want to end on a note that Robert Anton Wilson once said, which is, he said he doesn't define the power elite as them. I think he sees that as a loser script. He's rather, I define the power elite as myself and my friends. So see, we are the power elite. We have the power to overcome the system, and frankly, those who are in control of the current system aren't really in control, because they buy into it as much as anyone else. It's those of us who can see past the system that can imagine a new world that really had the power. So I think I'll end on that note. Peace.